So in this video, I'm just going to talk about the casting of a crystal shape out of resin, which is something we haven't really done before, so it was interesting. We learned a lot. Modelling and 3D printing a crystal shape was relatively easy. I should probably have considered buying some translucent resin and just printing it. Instead, we made a positive and then made a mould in silicone. We've printed these out, smoothed them down, and put them inside this two-part silicone dough. So we've now made a mould. There's a channel through this, through which this lace threads to give you something to hang it by, because I don't fancy trying to drill the epoxy up the. I don't fancy trying to drill the resin afterwards. So the question is, how best to do the casting? Now, I've not done a lot of casting. And I'm not casting a thing that's really funky shape yet. We've mostly used pre-made moulds. We did some soaps, but they were very easy. We just made some sort of standard ice cube shaped moulds. This shape being more complicated, I was originally planned to cast it standing up. I even made these little standing up jigs to hold the mould while I fill it with resin and while it cures. But this doesn't actually have a flat top. It comes to a point. So that's not perhaps the best way of casting it. I was figuring maybe it would be better to cast it laying down so that this top flat surface could be horizontal. And I could have a hole in the front here through which I could remove the part and just make sure this is propped up so it's nice and flat, fill it up to the load level. But that would mean cutting a hole in the front here, the shape of that, which I'm a bit nervous about doing because this silicone moulding stuff is ludicrously expensive. I also think I'll take it out this side. Must be about in there. Anyway, that's the next step. Oh, I've also left these poking out to make a channel, and I'm hoping I can seal these up well enough that the resin doesn't all flood out when I fill it up. Okay, I'm going to commit. I'm going to take it out of this side, which means cutting in until we find it. I may be about to destroy this, and that may give us a problem. Remove a little patch just so I can see what I'm doing. So the trick is going to be to expand this gap now until it's as big as that. There we go. So there's my mould. Looking at the inside, I don't actually think it's a very good mould. It doesn't look very flat and smooth on the inside. Maybe we didn't press down hard enough on the edges. Well, that's what we got. I guess we'll try moulding next. Okay, so I have the positive taken out of the mould now through this hole at the top. And my plan is to fill this with resin, have it flat, which seems to be harder than I anticipated, so that the top surface dries flat, and then let it to cure. So I need to mix up some resin, add a bit of colour, and then pour it. I've already threaded the leather strap through the mould, through the inside here, which was a bit fiddly. But that's done now, so in theory the gem will come out cast in blue resin with the strap already through it. I'm going to mix that up slowly now. I'll do that off camera. Okay, so I've just been mixing up this resin, trying not to get too many bubbles in it. I'm going to try adding some colour now, which I haven't done before. Thought I'd try that on camera. I've just realised, oh, it's got a little drop dispenser, that's good. It says, "A little goes a long way, try one drop at a time." Drop. That really is a little. Wow, a little really does go a long way. That's probably, that tiny drop might well be enough. Should we do one more drop? Let's do one more drop. There we go. Second drop. A little goes a long way. I mean, it looks pretty awesome. I guess the next step is to try and pour this into the mould and have the mould be horizontal for 48 hours. Should we pour it? Let's pour it. Okay, so I can see the leather inside starting to get covered, which means it should be filling up to the points where it might start coming out. Hasn't started coming out yet. I can tell already I've mixed about 10 times too much of this. Okay, since that's not rushed out of those ports yet, I'm going to keep on pouring. Okay, so it is not rushing out of the leather, and I'm trying to judge how level it is. I think that's it. Okay, so I mixed 180 mils of that, and I needed about 20. Tells me I am a terrible judge of volume. I feel like I should pour this into some moulds and make something else out of it rather than let it go to waste. I could even pour it into here. Oh, I think I was supposed to use Vaseline as mould release on there. I bouillioned this away from this and then offset it fractionally, so it'll be bigger than the gem, but it's pretty much a mould of the bottom half of the gem. That'll be my backup in case something goes wrong. Okay, well, I filled my stand, I filled my mould, I filled some spare little gem templates I can use as backups. I filled a clear one before we started. I've still got 120 mils of resin mixed for no good reason, because I'm an idiot. But it's looking all right. It's not leaking out through the where I threaded the pre-threaded this leather necklace through. It's not leaking out of there, which is great. It'll be interesting to see what shape comes out of the mould. I'm not convinced it's going to be a very good moulding, but hey, we still have time. I guess we just leave it all to set now. Okay, so the resin I poured has been curing for 48 hours, which is more than enough time for these little pieces that were the overflow. The main ones of interest today are the 3D printed mould, which was a bit of an afterthought, and this silicone mould, where I want to try and get this shape that we cast out ideally without wrecking the mould, but at least out in one piece. Shall I start there? Yeah, let's start there. Let's see about getting this out of here. Okay, well, it kind of feels loose, which is promising. I think the main problem here will be any sort of drag on these leather straps at the corner where it doesn't want to come out. I wonder if I can just give those a bit of a stretch and get them a bit freer. Just keep working that, see if I can convince myself it's moving separately. Okay, that either broke off. Oh, I think that may have broken off. Oh man, it broke off. Disaster. That is gutting.
Ah, and now I've broken the mould as well. Should have used more mould release. Come on, halfway out now. Can I get this one out, or is it going to snap that side too? Okay, that one. Okay, that mould is possibly salvageable, but I have split it. This is more problematic. Look at that. Okay, so first thoughts. It's very messy, not as clean as I wanted it, and it's just sheared that end right off. Interesting where the resin has permeated the leather. Okay. Try and tidy this up a little bit maybe. All that effort of running that leather inside, I'm genuinely gutted that that has broken off like that. Yeah, what this is about is poor mould making from me. We haven't got the mould pushed in tight enough to the edges of the positive. And casting it with the leather in, turns out that was a mistake. I think drilling it afterwards would have given a more positive result. Well, I mean, it's disappointing, if I'm honest. That was a lot of moulding and a lot of waiting, and the results are suboptimal. And this was never intended to be a 3D printed mould. It was always intended to be a stand. The question is how to get in there. It's going to be there forever if I try and chop in my way in from there, I think. Bigger snips. Okay, so what happens on the inside face of this? Is that firmly affixed to this resin, or is it in some way separable? What about heat? If I can literally melt it off. I bet the resin has a higher melting point. Than the PETG has. Right.
Eventually I stopped recording, but I did sit and just chip away at the black, and it did start to separate, especially where I'd used Vaseline as mould release around the gem. The plastic shell actually came away quite nicely and been peeled off in big chunks. So it was really quite an effective technique for getting a gem out. The trouble is, it's only the bottom 4/5 of the gem. It doesn't have the top portion of the gem or anywhere to attach anything to.
Focus on the gem. The gem needs its top gluing on. For that, I'm going to want a bit more.
My solution was to 3D print the missing portion of the gem with a channel for the lace again, and then just epoxy that onto the top. It means the gem is not a solid translucent piece, but the bottom portion, the 4/5 that we did successfully cast in the 3D printed mould, are actually pretty good. They still have a few little marks. Where the Vaseline couldn't escape and built up, there's actually a dent in one side, and you can still see the layer lines, but it's an awful lot better than the one we got out the caster with silicone. So this will be our main piece now. I'm just going to mix up the epoxy and then glue the two halves together. Thank you for watching and stay safe.